Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me today to see the flip of my first ever Traveler's Notebook Junk Journal. It was made and created during 2016-2017. If I'm being honest, I was nervous to share because obviously since it's my first, it was not the greatest quality. I just used scrapbook paper to create the cover, so you can see it's very thin. I actually have a tutorial on how I created this, which I smile now because it's a very humbling tutorial, but it's super simple. If you too want to create a tea and junk journal and you're brand new to this concept or idea, it's a fun little video that you can watch. And originally I had a different flower on the cover, but I covered it up with some fabric that I liked at the time, and then some more fabric on the bottom, on the top, and then I reinforced it with some fabric on the spine. So we're going to be brave enough to venture through this journal together and see what Nazi thought and what Nazi documented back in 2016 and 2017. Some of the pages are pretty warped, so just take that into account. This journal has been through a lot. So this is the front cover, and it has warped quite significantly, but that's okay. We still love her. I really love this little floral paper, and I'm glad I put it on here so I can have it forever. And then in the pocket I had some receipts from some sandwiches that I purchased. Of course, as a journaler, I wanted to keep it as ephemera. On this page I have a little scrap piece of some book paper that I journaled on, and I made a journaling card, and I think I was going to put a picture in here. So I need to go through my albums from this time period and just fill up my journal with the photos. This was a little flip that I made to journal about Amity Bloom. This was when I actually started creating journals and basically taking Amity Bloom more seriously and wanting to make it into a cute little business. And then here's just some ephemera pieces that I purchased from an estate sale, and I just tucked them into this pocket. So you'll notice that a lot of these pages, some of them have been journaled on, some of them are just collages of things that I enjoyed. This was my first attempt at making embroidered flowers, so I kept the little sample piece here. And here, just done some journaling and a really lovely piece of feed sack, and so I tried to doodle. I tried to draw the flower back then. Oh boy. So you'll see lots of random little doodles and writings in the journal. Some scrap pieces of wallpaper. This was a little pocket that I made out of some vintage wallpaper. And on the back was this cute little squirrel illustration, and I journaled about that memory. I had a really lovely but sad memory that had to do with the squirrel. I wanted to remember her sweet little spirit in my journal. I think this was my attempt at making just a little journal card with some fabric. And then here, I think it's all about fabric. I don't think I could have made that more obvious, but I have some swatch samples of some fabric, and I think this was fabric that I purchased from my thrift store. This is when I really got into purchasing fabrics and using different kinds to make journal covers. So I dedicated a page to that. On the back, oh my goodness, my doodles. I guess the title of this page was Happy. Here are just some scraps of paper and wallpaper and washi. So whenever I would journal and I wanted to fill up spaces, I would use paper, tape, and fabric. So not much has changed actually since then. I remember this was some packaging from the first ever textile pieces that I purchased from India. And I was so excited to receive them because I think during this time I was thinking of making the textile kit, the bohemian and linen and lace one. And so for the bohemian one, I ordered some things from India, and I wanted to keep the packaging on here, and I just decorated it with paper. This was just a little collage that I made. Not the greatest, but I had so much fun with this. I think I filmed this for a journal with me on my channel. There's various journal with me's that I made using this Traveler's Notebook junk journal, so I will list those below if you're interested. And I made this collage out of scraps of paper, fabric, my schedule for college at the time, and just bloom. The word bloom with a really lovely floral. On the bottom it says, "Bloom within you." Is it that simple? A lot of the times in my journal I would just write little thoughts that I would have. So not necessarily like Dear Diary types of entries, just like simple thoughts that I would have that would make me think later on. And then this is a really lovely vintage image of a bunny. And then on this page, this was a ledger that I folded, just collaged some antique pieces on. A little tag that I made collaged as well. I think I have a video showing how I made these tags as well. And then the title of this one is What is Love? So I was getting very deep into my thoughts, I think, during this time. And then on this page, it's the other piece of that ledger but folded over. And I just did some journaling, some stamping, some collaging on here. And then this was just a little scrap piece of some scrapbook paper, and I wrote paper scraps for the love of paper scraps, that I love including them in my journals. So I guess I was just playing around there. And then a little ephemera piece. Very random, I must say. This page I really like because it was from a book page. This was a vintage book. And I stitched on this button card, literally a journal card with buttons on them and some fabric. So I love this pocket and how it looks layered. I really enjoy the layered look. Same thing here on the back. I tipped in some antique ephemera, and I think I was going to add a photo and do some journaling. So I will definitely go back and fill that up, as I have a very good memory. Once I'm flipping through this journal, I'm remembering certain moments and things that happened during my life just by looking at a page, which I think is very special, and it's why I love journaling so much, just going back in time. This is a digital of a postcard that I had on this antique envelope that I just collaged on top of. Can do some journaling here. This was me playing around with my typewriter trying to spell out my name 3 times. This page here, this was, I think, some Happy Mail that I received from a friend, and I love the illustration of the oranges. And oranges are my favorite fruit ever. I love having an orange in the morning. So this is pretty special for me. And then just some scraps of paper on the bottom. I could do some journaling here if I wanted to. This pocket is special because this page is of me and my mother pretty much. So when I saw this image of like this mom, you know, making sure that her little son doesn't get the berries, I thought of my mother and I, even though this is a little boy. It has a very motherly feel to it. So my mom's name starts with a B, so I decided to dedicate this page to her. And then some journaling that I did about my mom. And then this was something that my mom made me. She was playing around with the tea bag and just playing around with the sewing machine, so I wanted to keep that in there. Something that she made. And then some scraps of paper that she really enjoyed, a postcard, and then some packaging from something that I ordered for her. Here on the back, this was from some Happy Mail as well. Someone sent me some lovely dried flowers, and I wanted to keep it here. I also really loved her handwriting. This was the first ever fabric piece that I stitched onto the top very badly, if I must say so. And then I also didn't even cut it straight, it was ripped. But I love the rugged look, and this was the first ever fabric tip-in or flip-out that I ever put in one of my journals. So this is very, very special to me, and of course there's journaling on the back. And then here, I believe I filmed a journal with me for these pages. I just made a little pocket with some floral albums and then did some journaling on journal cards. And this was a really lovely watercolored image that reminded me of the place where we went camping. On this page, just some antique ephemera, a little image of a deer, and I think I was just random journaling. So sometimes I would journal straight up the page, or sometimes I would journal as like little notes. This was an envelope, and I put some funny treasures inside. And then my obsession with washi tape was getting out of control. And then this was a drawing that my sister made of myself for me. So that goes into there. This is so sweet. On this page, this is one of my bloom Polaroids. So I guess I must have gone in and added some of my own digitals in here. Here I went to this farmer's market up in North Georgia, and then my mom made me a sweet little sentiment on a sticky note, so I saved that. This was from some Happy Mail that I got sent, so I put all of the pieces here. Some watercolors that I was testing out. This page, I was just doing some journaling. Very scrappy look. Ooh, this page is really pretty. So here I have some antique pieces of a quilt that I purchased from an estate sale. This is when I started getting into estate sales. I didn't understand the concept of estate sales because I couldn't wrap my head around giving and selling away your precious things, but I'm really happy that they exist because then there's people like you and I who purchase these beautiful treasures and can make art with them, and they live on throughout in our journals. And then this is, I think since this was some empty space, I put one of my bloom Polaroids from my shop on here, and it looks so cute because of the stitching. It matches the fabric theme. Here is a cute little pocket. This is a pocket from a journal card, and it says, "Remember your roots." And I think I was journaling about my family. Cute as a button. This is such a sweet little journal card. So I would include little tickets from when we went to see a movie, and then my stamp that I made a while ago for Amity Bloom. That's really sweet. On the back, I guess I was playing around with washi tape again and some fabric. And this pocket seems pretty random. Let's see. This was a piece from my planner of 2016. I had a little field notes planner. This is so cool. Call State Farm, check P.O. Box, Sprouts shopping, vegan muffins, like a recipe that I wanted to do, clean closet, question mark. I think this is something that I started doing during this time, is taking pieces from my planner and putting them in here just as little mementos. So this was in August. And then I also keep some doodles that I did with watercolor. This was some mail that I sent to a lovely friend. I kept messing up using my vintage typewriter. And it says I was trying to make some ephemera for my fairy-inspired linen and lace journal, and this kept happening. So let me actually show you. This is quite funny. So it took me so many tries to try to get it right, and I think I ended up just losing faith and moving on with my life. But I think this is so funny that I kept it in my journal. But this is something that happens a lot. If you create journals, there's always little oopsies, and I like to keep those little oopsie moments in my journal. And just to remind you that it's okay to make mistakes and to just keep moving on and creating beautiful art that means something to you. On this page, I think I was talking about how stressful it was to create wallpaper pockets. I think this was the first time I ever made a wallpaper pocket, and I didn't know how to sew that well, so I was pretty much having the worst day possible for crafty projects. And I said that Etsy is no joke, that I might not continue doing this. Like I was having a day with this, but I'm glad I didn't give up and I continued. That's really funny. This was a sweet, darling little image from a book page. Bought a vintage sewing basket for $30, which I was super proud of because I always wanted a wooden sewing basket, and I still have it, and I use it to this day, and I love it. So I think this is when I started enjoying collages. I think this was using some digitals from my shop, and then I used some fabric, some washi. I started using sentiments with collages. I was obsessed with knitting, and I wanted to knit these beautiful sweaters. So I purchased a sweater from the thrift store for a couple of dollars, and I ended up cutting it apart as inspiration to keep me interested in knitting because it was very difficult for me. It took me a while to learn, but I'm so happy that I stuck to it. So that makes me happy that I didn't give up, and I still love knitting to this day. And then on the back, I put France in the small studio of Amity Bloom. So I think this is when my love for French things started growing. This is some beautiful French typography. And then on this page, I wrote an incomplete doodle. Was started and unfortunately not finished. I want to be more comfortable drawing freely in my journals, so I think this is when I wanted to incorporate my doodles and drawings, but I wasn't that confident in doing so, because I didn't want to mess up my journal, which is quite funny to me now because a journal becomes memorable and becomes a treasure in a true journal when you use it, when you mess up, when you write your own things in here. And a journal's for yourself, it's not for anyone else. This makes me smile because I've grown so much from my first ever Traveler's Notebook junk journal. And I really love seeing how I collaged all these little pieces together. Ooh, this page is one of my favorites. It's like a fabric swatch page. And I love how I didn't journal in here because I like to see the actual tea stained paper. but they're just scrap pieces of antique fabric, as well as some of our fabric washi for those of you who remember our lovely fabric washi. And then this was a cute little bunny ribbon that I purchased from the thrift store. That's another great thing about flipping through a journal. You remember certain things that you used for projects. I also filmed this as a journal with me, talking about Halloween, things that scare me. I really loved this page because I was able to write in a white pen, which you can't really do on tea stain paper. So this was quite a fun page to do. On the back, I think this was March or journaling for my birthday. And I was going to add an image here. I remember a photo of myself, but I need to print it out. And then I think I also did a process video on how I created this page. Each little section had a sentiment, so gathering happiness, blooming, and laughter. And it turns into a pocket so I could journal inside of those. And I have some images of my little siblings and some tags. This was such a cute project. And I loved that I included it in the journal. It's a great way to add more journaling space in such a small space, such as the traveler's notebook size. Here I started collecting vintage wallpaper, so samples of my vintage wallpaper collection. This is where the addiction started. Here it's from a book page of this beautiful pond illustration. I just wrote, I think I found my dream pond. The things that I journaled about back then, that is so funny. This was a recipe page, and then I was just testing out some of our fabric washi and some of my wallpaper. This page, what is in here? Let's see. Just like a vintage receipt of something. Don't know why that's in there, but I will keep it. This was color theory. This was when I was filming my color theory class, or thinking of creating this class. I think this was just a scrap piece of paper that I liked, so I put it in here. And then this is really funny. This says reward of merit, and on the back I think I journaled about basically losing my wallet at the local park, and I got a phone call from the police at like 9:30 at night, and I got so scared because I'm like, oh my goodness, what did I do? What am I in trouble for? I picked it up, and they basically told me that someone turned in my wallet to the police, which was so sweet. So I was able to go at like 10 at night to the police station to pick up my wallet. And I remember this moment was when I realized how much impact being kind to others and to strangers can have on their day. So that was a really special day, and I'll never forget that sweet little memory. A lovely little ribbon from the 1970s. And then this was a sweet little floral hanky that I added on top of some of these floral illustrations. Some more of the watercolor book. This is journaling about my grandma. This was going to the Amicalola Park in Georgia, and this was our little park pass. And this was a sweet little feather from our trail that I wanted to save. And this was a really sweet tag that I was sent in some happy mail with some beautiful wallpaper. And then this was just some journaling on a file folder. This, I think, was a little piece of some rifle paper company, like some wrapping paper. And then on the back, talking about my obsession with Fixer Upper. This was a little piece of a book page, and it reminded me of Fixer Upper. Some buttons. On this page, just some washi tape, some journaling. And then here are some letters from you guys that have sent me some beautiful happy mail. I always love to keep them and put them in my journals. This is some journaling about my obsession with thrifting ever since I was little. My mother would take me to the thrift stores, and it makes me so happy to continue to go to the thrift stores even as an adult and finding beautiful pieces to put into my journals. On this page, oh my goodness, this was the first ever fabric pocket that I made. I tore the page actually, so here's some tape. I tore the page and I added some washi tape and I sewed over the washi tape. I love seeing the little struggles and the oopsie moments, especially during this time when I was learning how to sew. And I actually learned how to sew because I wanted to put fabric into my journals. So this was me trying to understand how a sewing machine works, how you can sew fabric onto paper. It makes me so happy to see where it all started. These are some beautiful butterflies, I think from a book plate and then a flashcard. This was some journaling from an antique book from 1963. I wanted to keep this person's handwriting in my journal because I thought it was beautiful. And I think I'll leave it just as is because I don't want to take away from their writing that they put. On the back of that book page, I wrote Christmas, so I think these are my Christmas pages. And then in the pocket, I added a little hanky and some embroidered trim. And I just have a scrap piece of paper from Christmas time. And then this is really sweet. This was a little sentiment that my aunt wrote to me using my typewriter. On this page, I think I just put some of my favorite paper that I was using for my Christmas journaling and for some of my Christmas journals, just samples of paper. On this page, December 2017, added some fabric from, I believe we came out with some Christmas fabric bundles. And then this was part of a hanky, I think a Christmas hanky, and some of the wrapping paper that I used to wrap my loved ones' gifts. Here on the back, it's very difficult to show the back because as you can see the paper is warping. But it says, "Goes Christmas shopping." So in here, I did a little doodle, and then this was a floating pocket made out of wallpaper. Here, I just did some journaling on what I did, like my December daily, but I think I gave up halfway. I made it from the 10th to the 13th, and then I gave up. And then I think underneath this tag was like my Christmas wish for the year, some collaging. And then on the pocket, this is pretty cool. I remember putting this in my journal. I ordered some Pura Vida bracelets, and the muslin bag that it came in, I stitched it onto the back to create a little pocket. And my sister actually made me a cute little snowman. So I kept that in the back here. I also have in here this little page, like this deconstructed journal page of some fabric flips. And underneath each one, I have journaled a little something. I love this. I have some of these journal cards. Oh my goodness, if you've been following me for a while now, then you remember these painted journal cards that I did. I wanted to turn them into digitals, I think. And I made this one, "Let Your Soul Be Free," "Bloom with Grace," and then "Bloom Where You Are Planted." Leave a comment below if you remember these journal cards, as that would make my day to know that you guys still remember these sweet little pieces. And then here in the back is where I kept all of this stuff. So this was essentially just scrap pieces of drawings that my sister made for me. My siblings would always draw some sweet little things for me, so I would always keep that in my journal. This was my sister. "Dear Nazi, I love you in my heart." Nazi. She would spell my name N-A-S-E. Some more little sentiments from my sister. And then this was some more journaling that I think fell out of the middle of the insert, so I still have it in my journal. So when you're creating a journal and it's something like this, over time it will become a little bit more used, especially if you flip through it and use it. So if any of your pages fall out, you can reinforce it with washi tape, or you can just put it in the back of your journal. The more imperfect and special and unique a journal is, and more worn and used, the more I love it. That is pretty much the entire journal. I like to keep it in this little lace elastic so I can retie it time and time again. And I just tie a little knot. And this is the first volume ever of my Traveler's Notebook junk journals. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed seeing that flip and that it wasn't too overwhelming. It makes me really happy to see how my style has changed, evolved, and where it all began. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you guys loved this video. I will be back very soon, I promise. As we're in the middle of creating a new class, we're going to be having a ton of new products, lots of special surprises, and so we've been working very hard. Let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed this flip and would like to see another one from another journal. Thank you so much for watching. I promise to be back very soon sharing something special again. And until next time, sending so much love and peace your way. Bye-bye and have a great day.